Hey, this is Rodney Miller with Hard Money Partner. Today I'm with George Glover. And George was a coach of mine back from 2017 to 2020 when I decided I needed to join a mastermind group and I needed somebody to coach me along a little bit. And so I went on a hunt and I found George, and we're going to talk a little bit about kind of what he does and about mastermind groups. Welcome, George.
Hey, thank you, Rodney. Pleasure to be here.
All right, man. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I started as an accountant, graduated with accounting and finance degree, and it was working for an Australian company for about 18 and a half years. Moved my way up to become a divisional CFO, and then spent the last 4 years running some of their businesses and divisions, and decided it was time to get out of the CFO business and became for all intents and purposes, a CEO. Ran 2 businesses in China, and then the entire Western U.S. for one of their larger businesses in the U.S. And then moved over, and then took my accounting and finance degree and parlayed it into an executive VP of sales and marketing for an employee-owned company in Northwest Arkansas. Worked there for about 4 years, and then a private equity company asked me to come out here to Oklahoma City and run one of the businesses that they just acquired. So ran that for about a little under a year and a half, and then took some time off for personal reasons. My wife was diagnosed, as you know, with cancer, so just took time off to be Mr. Mom. And during that time, companies in the industries that I was in called me up. Had an opportunity to become a CEO again, and then a company called Vistage called me and asked me if I would become an executive coach and chair and build a practice of peer advisory groups. And I only had one question for them: is where the heck were they when I needed them? And said, yeah, sure, let's try this Vistage thing. And that was back in 2016, and 7 years later, I have 4 groups. I have 2 CEO groups, a key executive group, and an emerging leader program. And I'm getting ready to launch 2 more groups here in the near future.
Yeah, your business is good. You're exploding. Thank God you didn't take that CEO position.
No doubt.
Because you've helped a lot of people. You helped me a lot. So I want to get into kind of how you have helped me. But so you got a couple kids. You live in Edmond. Mm-hmm. You're here local.
Yep.
And one interesting fact is you've got a son that is at West Point.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, that's definitely.
Is he swimming is he on scholarship swimming?
Yes.
Or, okay.
Well, every cadet at West Point is on scholarship.
Okay.
For all intents and purposes, so the Army pays for their education, but in return they serve for, I think it's 5 years after they graduate. But he was recruited to join the swim team there. He swam competitively for about 8 years prior to going up to West Point. And yeah, so now he swims with the swim team there.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, enjoyed following his career before he went off there. He was a little stud. Shouldn't say little.
Yeah, that's right.
So So we're going to talk today about masterminds, kind of your specialty. Mm-hmm. And I got a few quotes here. I'm going to quote from some famous people on masterminds. I'm sure you've heard them, but I'll read a couple here. No individual has sufficient experience, education, native ability, and knowledge to ensure the accumulation of a great fortune without the cooperation of other people. You know who said that?
No, I don't.
Napoleon Hill. Exactly.
Yep.
So let's see here. No two minds ever come together without thereby creating a third, invisible, intangible force, which may be likened to a third mind. So imagine 10 minds. I guess that's like
absolutely
multiply that. Yeah. Alone we can do so little. Together we can do so much. Helen Keller. So just a few quotes about masterminds. And
well, I've got one more for you.
Oh, you got one? Okay.
And it's actually one of the former members also mentioned it the other day, saying that he liked how I mentioned the quote, and it's if you want to go fast, go it alone, but if you want to go farther, go it together. And it's an African proverb.
I like it. So why should somebody join? Let's just start with a general. Why should somebody join a mastermind? If you're an entrepreneur, or a CEO, a high-level executive, C-suite executive, business owner, what is the benefit to joining a mastermind?
I should ask you that question, right?
I could answer that, I'll pitch in.
There's many reasons. I mean, first reason is no one should ever have to go it alone. Because when you move up in terms of leadership and get it to the position where you're the ultimate decision maker. So whatever that is whether it's a president, a CEO, a business owner, but you're ultimately making those important decisions. That's a lonely place to be, because you've got a lot of stakeholders, if you will, who want something from you. And that's the way I always saw it was, you have a leadership team, they're looking to you for advice. You're looking to you to be that leader. You've got a board of directors who are looking for you to, grow that bottom line and grow the shareholders' values. And you've got vendors who are needing something, customers who are needing something. And so where do you go? Where do you go for unbiased, perspective? I say advice, perspective, insight, and I think that's why a mastermind group, a group of like-minded individuals or like-minded leaders, who really have no other agenda other than to help each other, is an awesome place to be. I mean, that's why my only question when this was explained to me, of what Vistage was and what peer advisory groups were, that's why I only had one question, because I understood where the recruiter at the time where she was coming from. Imagine working in Beijing, China, where you have 165 employees, all of whom English is not their first language.
Sure.
So it's their second language, and they all want me to speak English so they can learn English when I'm trying to learn Mandarin. But imagine that, being in that scenario, and who are you going to go to for as a sounding board, if you will?
Sure.
There were some important decisions at the time. We were getting ready to roll out a product into China that had not been introduced into the market before. So we were the first business to roll that product out into China, and it was a scary thing to do.
Sure.
Because imagine in China at the time, this was 2007, 2008, things are booming, and we're going to try a new product, and that the market was asking for. And oh, by the way, there's a lot of technicalities in it, a lot of things. I mean, I have an accounting finance degree. I know nothing about chemical makeup of this product, and to try it out, and you're leading a team, a team there where the culture is, hey, we can't tell the boss bad news, so it's always yes, never no.
Exactly.
And to have those decisions that were, that I had to make, like in terms of, how much will we tolerate in terms of just different trials? How are we going to market this, into the marketplace? And oh, by the way, what price do we charge?
Sure.
And so to have just all those little things, those questions that you have to make yourself or make with your team, it can be a lonely place.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons I sought out a mastermind, and I'd been in some other masterminds before, and they went okay. They were some were industry specific, like just real estate related, and some were just a bunch of guys getting together. They weren't really curated or anything, so they kind of all fizzled out. And when you're everybody's in the same industry, you have the same ideas, you see the same stuff, and it gets kind of monotonous. But so I kind of sought out Vistage, because after you explained it to me, I was looking for kind of some fellowship, some other high level folks, and it it is lonely, when you're a CEO or when you're an entrepreneur. You're kind of doing things alone.
Absolutely,
it's a lonely business, but also you don't have people to bounce ideas off of. The people around you are probably not the most forthcoming with giving you criticism. Right. And boy, you get criticism in Vistage.
Absolutely. Yes, you do. In Vistage you do. Definitely.
But that was kind of a great byproduct of the whole Vistage program that I wasn't even expecting. I guess you kind of told me that was going to happen, but the amount of honesty and hard truths that people told me was kind of refreshing. You don't really get that. So, so Vistage, there's lots of masterminds out there. The thing I like about Vistage, like I just said, is you take multiple industry leaders across, every conceivable business type, and you throw them in a room, and basically what we would do is if we had an issue, we would bring it forward to the group, and the group would tear it apart, and and you curated this magnificently, because it's hard herding cats, especially leaders.
I call it herding lions.
Herding lions. Yes. There you go. But we would solve some really big problems, and we would solve them over and over again. I always knew I could bring a problem to the table, and I'd have some of the smartest guys in the room. Tell me kind of how that process works, just the problem-solving process of Vistage.
Well, yeah, first and foremost, you mentioned just being able to bring that to a group. I mean, and that first thing that comes with that is trust. And that was something, like my responsibility as a Vistage chair is to create as safe as an environment as possible so that members could bring anything. And as you experienced being a member in that group, bringing anything meant even personal issues, challenges.
Yeah, people brought personal stuff.
Not just business, strategic business type issues, but also issues in terms of, am I leading this organization? Am I leading this business the right way, or effectively? Am I the leader that needs to show up? That my employees are counting on me showing up. In terms of the process, so that's the first thing. First thing for that was really impressed upon me as I was growing my Vistage practice was I need to create a safe environment. I mean, that's key. It's if I can't create that safe environment, then we can't really have open, honest conversations. And if we can't have open, honest conversations, then it's very hard to understand what the real decision that needs to be made is. Because as you experienced, most times that decision or that issue or problem or opportunity, that might just be a symptom to much deeper issue, or a deeper decision that needs to be made. And so, at Vistage, what we do is we call it like clarifying questions. So I'll facilitate the issue processing, and then open it up to members. And I think the hardest part for members is to put the solution into the question. So I'll always say, I
remember that. Okay. Yes, I remember that.
I'll always say, don't start a question with, have you thought about?
Sure.
Sure. Or have you done this? Because the this is what the other CEO or leader thinks the solution might be, versus try to ask some open-ended questions to really understand what the issue. First, what is the issue? Understand what's driving the issue and why this is on that CEO. Or
you don't want guys just blurting out, here's what you should do. No, here's the answer to your problem.
No, exactly.
Okay, yeah, I remember that. I remember every once in a while one would slip out and you'd be like,
Exactly.
We're not providing solutions. We're asking questions.
Yeah.
So.
What's awesome now is that the group they self-police, if you will.
Okay.
Like they'll look at a member who's asking a question, and they'll even say, "I think the solution was in there." And I've had several members say to me that one of the benefits of being in the group is they now see themselves asking better questions of their teams.
Okay.
So they, because of the how we process the issues and the questions we ask in the group setting,
sure,
they now see that happening, when they're with their leadership teams. And
I think a lot of that spilled over to me too. I remember you can't help but affect the way you manage your folks.
Absolutely.
It kind of spills over into how you manage your teams, because it's kind of the same principles, but
but then so then the next step in the process, once we've asked all those questions, and this is probably one of my favorite parts of how we process these issues, is that once we've asked all the questions, I'll ask the member, hey, listen, Rodney, based on the questions that you were asked and your answers, is this still the issue? And I'll point to the flip chart where I've written down the issue. And it's almost 50-50, in fact, maybe even more than 50-50, that whether it's the member that brings the issue to the group or someone else in the group, we'll restate the issue.
Yeah.
Because based on those questions, it's like, all right, that may not have been that may have been the issue 20 minutes ago, but based on this conversation we've had, we all think this is the real decision or question that needs to be answered.
Sure. When you got 20 super smart people on every spectrum of the valuation guy and the income and all that, they're just it's from 100 million or probably higher than that down to less than $1 million. And you've got input from all these high level folks. It's amazing the kind of stuff that comes out. Like the original issue might not be the real issue. I mean that happens a lot, right?
Exactly.
So
and then we go around the room. So once the member has identified, okay, this is the question I need answered, or this is the issue that I need some help with, we'll go around the room and members will give suggestions, and sometimes we get some suggestions. Well, what I'll tell the member is that whose issue we're processing, I'll say, hold off on any response until the very end, because you start to see these solutions or suggestions or insight build upon each other during the course of the solution process. And in fact, one of the byproducts of that too, if you will, is that I'll have members that will say, shoot, it wasn't my issue that just got processed, but I can see this happening in my business. And so it's made them, that CEO or business owner, a lot more aware. Yeah. And gives them the opportunity to be a lot more proactive too in their business.
Sure. And these aren't small decisions. And this isn't what kind of toilet paper is stock in the bathroom. This is like, are we going to shut down a whole division of our business?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Why should we or should we not kind of
reshifting the entire we've had some recently, like just reshifting the entire organizational chart or accountability chart, as some of the members like to call it.
Yep. So what are the most common issues you see with CEOs and leaders of industry? What are the recurring themes? If you could pick out a few that we all struggle with and that we need help with.
A lot of times, Rodney, it's the issues revolve around the leader, in terms of, am I doing the right thing? And so sometimes some fairly common ones are, hey, am I hanging on to this executive too long?
Yes.
It's so I remember early on, that was probably one of the more significant issues, and the group is like, all right, this person needs to go, but it's a hard thing for the leader,
especially when they're a high level executive, part of an executive team. And I remember this.
And so absolutely. So but then once that leader, makes that decision to say, okay, it's time for this key executive on my leadership team to move on, and let's go help them find their happy place. It was amazing how the rest of the leadership team galvanized.
Yes.
With each other. And
yes, I remember this well. And this has happened several times.
It comes up quite a bit.
But just really hand wringing. This CEO, if he lets this person go, the whole organization is going to fall apart.
Yes, yeah.
But the other argument from everybody else was like, well, he's dragging your organization down. He's like, but it's going to be so painful, and everybody's like, off with their head, and this went on for, I think, several meetings, months. It didn't happen quick, and finally took the advice, and he let the person go.
Yeah. And I think that's probably the hardest thing, and a lot of times most common thing. I think the other one that comes up that's very common is culture. Any issue or challenge having to do with culture, to the point where it's the group, and I say the group, like my original group. There's currently 15 members in there. They've been very focused on making sure that they create the right culture, have the right core values, but also hire to those core values. And so we've really, as a group, focused on, okay, how do you hire to the core values? So I'll bring in speakers. In Vistage, the platform, the way the platform works there is, I'll bring in speakers 7 to 8 times a year, and the topic of those speakers are all dictated and driven by the group. So, as their chair, if there is a common topic that comes up during the one-to-one time I have with the members, or if there's common issues, and also too, in fact, we're going through this right now with all of the groups is Vistage has created what they call the decision model assessment, and it's a survey that I send to the members to better understand what are the most important decisions that they're facing right now. And I'll go out and grab speakers within our Vistage speaker network. We have over 1,300 speakers across the country to choose from.
Gotcha.
And so sometimes we'll bring that speaker in, and they'll talk about that topic, whether it's hiring and retention, probably the most common. Every year, hiring and retention is a top 3 topic or decision that the CEOs are making.
Yeah, especially right now, man. Hiring and retention is like, that's our main focus and our main struggle. So, okay, cool. So you mentioned a little bit about the one-to-one. So this is just pretty cool in that, I mentioned I like it because different industries in one room. Mm-hmm. You can take what's working in somebody else's industry, pull it into your own industry, and make it unique to your industry. Mm-hmm. That's really cool. But also the difference between Vistage is that this mastermind group is curated, mm-hmm. is moderated.
Yeah, facilitated is what we call
facilitated,
it. Yeah.
So you have the meetings with the group, facilitated meetings. It keeps it moving, and it keeps people from going down rabbit holes. You're really good at that because we all try to.
Right.
And you shut us down and you keep us on focus. Yeah. But then also the one-to-ones, like you just mentioned, to where outside of the meetings, once a month, mm-hmm. you come by and you do a 2 hours?
Yeah, 90 minutes to 2 hours.
One-to-one mm-hmm. with the actual with the member. Tell me about that. How that usually goes. 'Cause we did a lot of those, man. That really helped me out. It helped me out so much that I asked you to do full days with my staff.
That's right.
We did several full days with my entire staff. Mm-hmm. But get into that.
Yeah, no. So the one-to-ones. So the way that the platform works there, it's really the members' time to talk about the most important thing that may be on their mind or that is on their mind. And I call it the safe place to vent too. And I've had some members call me up and say, "Hey, listen, meet me here, not at my office." Because it's going to be vent day, and listen, I get it, and that's one of the things that I love about what Vistage does is all the Vistage chair. I would say 90% of Vistage chairs have run businesses, and so we get it too. So I can sit there and have a conversation, ask questions, and think, oh my gosh, I've been there. And I think it's helped me become a better question asker.
Sure.
Because I've been there or asked better questions. That's the hardest part too, by the way, of being a Vistage chair, especially having been a CEO, a president, or in that C-suite. Asking questions and practicing active listening versus thinking, oh, Rodney, I know the answer to that. I've been there. I've done this. No. Asking the questions, because there are many members, and I think you've said it before too. It's like, oh man, I'm glad we had this one-to-one because I just blurted out the answer. Because and it was just so for me as during the one-to-ones, the biggest the biggest responsibility that I have as a chair is to help draw out the answers, but then also to encourage the member to say, okay, listen, hey, right now we're just getting this one-to-one time. How about we get the perspective and insights from the other 15 or 16 CEOs that are Sure. And so how I look at it, it's a dual platform of coaching, if you will. So in that one-to-one time, I'm coaching you on a one-on-one basis. So it's just that that single platform or single coach one-on-one coaching. Whereas going to the group, you now have 15 coaches in the group. And I think it was one member that said, like, after his first or second meeting, he said, man, there's no other place on this planet where I can get 15 coaches or consultants for a full day.
Sure.
And that's what you're getting. When you go to that group meeting, you're getting 15 other CEOs who are acting as your coach or consultant for that full day.
High level stuff, man. Very good. Kind of back up a little bit because this is, the Hard Money Partner podcast.
Yes.
But when I was working with you and in Vistage, and I left Vistage, and now I'm back into a lending mastermind.
Right.
Probably someday that'll kind of run dry, and I'll come back to a Vistage mastermind. I flip flop around. Don't have time for all of it or do everything, but totally different business. I have a chain of medical clinics, and You helped me go from 1 location to 5 locations. We set some goals. Mm-hmm. We set some. We got the management team together, and we started working with our management team to expand into these different locations and to make our services deeper but wider. And we couldn't have done that without setting some pretty hot, big goals.
Yes.
And then meeting regularly. You would come in and facilitate. I'd pull my staff out, and we would take a full day. I think some of them were 2 days.
Yeah, early on it was.
And man, we would just do the hard work with brain, and we would argue, and we would, we would debate, and then we would get it on paper, and we'd say, here's what we're gonna. By the time we left, we'd be like, here's the plan. Here's what we're gonna do. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how you could do it if if you could take on a project that big if you didn't take the time to bring in a coach like you and really put the work into it.
Yeah.
It wasn't cheap, but in the long run, it was cheap.
Yeah, but if you think about the return, on it, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's and like what you're talking about, Rodney, is sometimes I know I've had these conversations in the past where it's as an entrepreneur, you start out doing everything. And what was one member said to me once, he goes, you're flying by the seat of your pants until you can't fly by the seat of your pants anymore.
Sure.
And you need to have those systems and structure in place. You need to, your employees need to know, hey, what's the target? What is the goal? And what's the process for us to get there?
Yes.
And to build that runway, if you will, so that their individual planes can take off and contribute to the business. Yeah, to have the structure and goals and expectations and the core values, like what we talked about.
I was going to say, the foundation of it all, we spent a lot of time on what are our core values, what do we stand for.
Absolutely.
And how we're going to hire and fire around those core values.
Yes.
And the playing field where, it's like I think you explained this to me, it's like a football field, and we want you to be individuals, and we want you to be leaders. Mm-hmm. But here's the out of bounds lines. You don't go out of bounds, right. And here's where we play. Mm-hmm. As long as you play within these lines, you're good. And so
Absolutely.
That's kind of how we ran the organization.
And that's what all the whether they're the leaders in the organization or the employees in the organization need to know. Here's the boundaries.
Yes.
And then also how they contribute, because we one of the things we talked about quite often was, do we have the right people in the right seats? Do we have the right people on the bus? So this gets back to some of the Jim Collins work.
Yes.
Making sure. And so how do you make sure that you have the right people on the bus? Well, it's making sure that the people on the bus all are aligned with your core values. And I remember one speaker that we had. It was Gustavo Grodnitsky, and he talked about culture. And one of the things that he said that that has always stuck with me, and it was that it's not about hiring people that have the right core values, but how quickly can they adapt to the core values that your business has. So align them with your core values, but how quickly can they adapt? Because then you've created that culture in terms of this is the way we do things.
Sure.
And then also at the same time making sure that you get rid of those employees that don't align with core values.
Yep.
Because I recently heard a speaker say that if you don't get rid of the employees that don't align with the core values, they will recruit better than you do. They'll recruit people to whine and complain about this and that, or because they're not aligned with your business's core values.
Yes, and one thing I learned is you don't. We still talk about me and Patty, my main manager. We talk about that all the time, and how we just can't be slow to let those people go, because the internal rot they create, it gets us every time if we procrastinate on letting them go. So we've gotten really good at being efficient about that. If we don't feel like somebody fits into the culture, I think that's something I learned from this. Is you gotta cut them out quick, and get somebody in there that aligns with your values and beliefs. You'll grow a lot faster, and everybody, the employees, will be much happier because they really just create chaos. So some really cool stuff that I've seen come out of Vistage while I was there, and then after I left. But while I was there, we actually had a Vistage member pass away very unexpectedly, and just how the group came together to support the family and to keep the business going was unbelievable. And then another, another Vistage member after I left, but somebody I knew very well, got in a really bad accident and was taken out. Was hospitalized for a substantial amount of time and almost didn't live. But once again, the Vistage group came together to support and keep the business going. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, no, and that's something that as the group grows and the relationships deepen and they bond with each other and they trust each other, that those are the things that those unexpected moments that we call it. We so like you mentioned the member who passed away. I mean, it was devastating. It was devastating for the family, devastating for the business. And so to watch the group come together to say, okay, what can we do to help this family? It was a pretty remarkable thing, because I mean, if you and the member was, I think he was only in the group for like less than 2 years.
Yeah.
And just to watch, just to offer that help, and then fast forward a year later, that member's wife joins the group. She's running the business, and I tell you that in terms of a success story, watching the group help her with regards to her leadership, because here's this transition of your husband's running the business and he's founded the business. The business it was founded in, I think it was 1985, and so it's been around for quite some time.
Yeah.
And so there's this huge legacy component to the business, but to watch her take the reins and make it her own while still honoring her husband's legacy has been really a privileged thing to get to see and to get to be a part of.
And I remember that wasn't an easy process either, because I remember there was pushback among the management staff, and it was not it was not an easy process.
Yes,
so,
absolutely. And then the other one that you talked about, again, something unexpected that came up. So the member was involved in a very tragic, motorcycle accident, and so in fact, we didn't know when he would be back into the business, and so I got the group together and said, okay, listen, I'm going to bring his daughter into our meeting, and really we're going to process an issue, and you're just going to answer one question. As a CEO or a business owner, if you were absent for an extended period of time, let's say it's a year, what would you want done? How would you want your clients? How would you want the communication to your clients to look like? How would you want communication to your employees to look like? And from the input and the insight from the group, the daughter was, and her family was able to pull together a communication plan, both for the clients and for their employees. And then also at the same time, the business was going through 2 acquisitions. And so the following month, the daughter and the CEO came in to the group and basically asked the question, what do we do with these 2 acquisitions? Do we put them on halt? Do we keep going? How are we going to do this? And so because the group knew and had a very strong relationship with the member, was able to help them navigate through those uncharted waters, if you will.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that we did too, and I asked the group, one thing I always do is I make sure that I ask the group, is it okay if we do this? I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's the group is there for themselves. I'm just the facilitator, like you said. I make sure that we don't go down the rabbit holes. So I asked the group, I said, hey, listen, I have an idea. Why don't we bring the member's daughter into our group until he's ready to come back? So she became the de facto CEO and came to the group, or came to the full day group meetings. I had one-to-ones with her during that period of time as well.
And this is a good sized business. This is not.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, this is a substantial business.
And the acquisitions weren't here in Oklahoma City. There was one in Houston. There was one in Ohio. So these were acquisitions that were geographically, in different states. And so it was, there was a lot.
And the owner's completely incapacitated.
Completely, yeah.
Wow, that's that's amazing that you can pull all that together. So
Well,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, the group pulled it together. They helped each other, and
that is very cool. Very cool. So what kind of person? What kind of person do you look for? Who fits into a Vistage model? I know a lot of people that are transactional business owners, and they just want to do transactions, and they don't want to, they're not looking to systematize and grow, and they just want to do deals. That's probably not your person, but what kind of person, if they decide they want to get around in a group of big thinkers and they want to go big and they want to expand and they want to, go to the next level, who makes the perfect Vistage client?
Right.
And who does not fit the model?
Great question. I mean, it's because that's one of the things that the group, and this is the way I look at it, is as we get to our capacity, if you will, and normally our groups top out at 18 members. Although the groups will say, hey, let's stay at 15 for a little while and see how it goes, or 12 or whatever. I let the group have some influence in terms of who to bring into the group, but. Sure,
but I remember getting interviewed. You when I wanted to come in, you had 2 other group members take me to lunch.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
and give me a little interview.
Exactly. And so they have a lot of influence on who joins the group, but they also trust that I will choose the right people for them to interview, so to speak.
Sure.
And so what I look for is really it boils down to 3 things. It's first is, as the leader, are they not satisfied with the status quo? Because, like you said, if there's some who are just whether it's transactional or they've gotten to a point in their career or in their business where they're just good coasting. I've heard some people say that, where it's hey, listen, I'm good where I'm at, and that's perfectly okay. In fact, there's some that they've said I'm good where I'm at, and then 2 years later call me and say, hey, listen, I'm not quite. Remember that conversation where I said I was good where I was at? And I said, oh, yes, I do. Not so much anymore. I need some help. And so what I look for is that. First thing is not satisfied with the status quo. Most entrepreneurs, when they say they're not satisfied with the status quo, they want to continue growing their business.
Okay.
The second thing I look for is, as a CEO, you're very comfortable challenging your team or your leadership team. Are you comfortable challenging your peers? So are you comfortable in a room of other CEOs and saying, hey, listen, I don't necessarily agree with what you're saying here in terms of the decision that you want to make, and here's why.
Yes.
And so are they comfortable, asking challenging questions?
Yeah.
I've gotten some grief from a few members. I call it carefrontational. Are they willing to confront the issue, but in a caring manner?
Sure, sure.
So making sure that we all do it in a very respectful and caring manner.
And the flip side of that too, right?
Yes, and that's the third one.
That's a biggie.
That is the third one, and I think that's probably the hardest one.
Sure,
because there's a 3-letter word that gets in the way of this one. So the third one is: are they willing to be challenged by their peers? So are they willing to be, as one member said, be humbled,
yes, by
hearing some very difficult things, and the 3-letter word that gets in the way, ego. If they can't be vulnerable especially with this group, then it's not going to be the right group for them. If they can't come and say, I have no issues, I have no challenges, or no, and they can't throw out the things that keep them up at night. That's what I call it.
Yep.
Then it's not going to be the right group for them. It's because the group cares for each other and genuinely wants to help each other become better leaders for their respective organizations.
Absolutely.
And so that's the toughest one, I'd say. But and sometimes, so if I'm sitting down with a prospective member, those questions come up in terms of, I'm not sure what I can even bring to the group. And I'll say to them sometimes, you'll be amazed at what you can bring to the group. There's one story. It was early on when I was putting the group, my first group together. Had that same question come up. I'm not sure what I can bring to the group. I said, well, just come to a full day meeting. You'll be surprised. And so we're processing an issue. We're going around the table, getting suggestions. And this person throws out a suggestion. I kid you not, Rodney. Every single member in the room starts taking notes. And they're like, man, that suggestion there, I need in my business.
Nice.
It's not even my issue.
Okay.
Or my challenge, or it's not even my airtime yet. I just got a nugget. And so everyone's writing it down. And I said to that member after the meeting, I said, well, how do you think it went? He goes, I see what you mean. And that's the thing. And especially if you can create that environment.
Sure.
That's one of two of my biggest responsibilities. Ask really good questions, and that also means don't try to give the answers all the time or really just ask the questions. And then the second, and I think that's probably the biggest one, is create that environment so that these leaders can come together and do spectacular things.
Sure.
I heard recently, you hear about in peer groups, 1 + 1 definitely can equal 3 or more. I mean, that's the beauty of the peer groups is that the different perspectives that you get and the value that you can take away from that is immeasurable.
Yeah, and before I joined, you hear CEOs, high-level executives and all that. And in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, these are a bunch of high-level, stiff collar, probably a-holes,
Right.
But they're just human beings.
Exactly.
And they're all trying to figure things out.
Absolutely.
Nobody, even the highest level guys are still second guessing themselves and trying to figure out if they're on the right path.
Absolutely.
So
and you hit the nail on the head because, at the end of the day, we're all just human beings. We just happen to, be a CEO or own a business or be put into, or not be put into, but, be in a position where we're the ultimate decision maker. And sometimes that can get very robotic, if you will, especially when employees are thinking, okay, they're the CEO, I can't approach them.
Sure.
And so that's, and then that mindset, some people might have that mindset coming into the group, and then they realize, oh, they're human beings. I think one of the other things that I always get from members in the group is, I thought I was the only one dealing with this.
Oh yeah.
And they realize they're not alone.
Sure.
And that's why,
sure.
And especially if you think about it, like when we went into the pandemic, good gosh. I mean, it's, aren't you glad that we didn't have to do this alone?
Yep.
And that's what I said. I said, no one should ever have to navigate uncharted territory like the pandemic alone.
That was a crazy time. It was that was probably one of the best times to be in a mastermind group.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Because we're all like, WTF, man, what is going on? And my business is shut down. What am I going to do?
What's this thing called PPP, and how do we get one?
Exactly. But yeah, it was just such a shock. Everybody's business was shut down overnight.
Oh, yeah.
And we're just like, what do we do?
Yeah, and in fact, remember one member almost closed his doors.
Yeah.
I mean, and he brought it to the group a couple of times. First, he thought, okay, maybe I can sell the business, but then got to the point where, hey, listen, if something doesn't change, I need to close the doors.
Yep.
Brought it to the group. In fact, one of the things he brought to the group was this opportunity to merge it with other like businesses. And I can tell you today, that business is growing exponentially.
I ran into you guys, and he said it sounds like everything's going good. Yeah. He's thriving.
His biggest issue now is I can't get enough people.
Yeah, that's everybody's issue.
And because he's got more business than he can actually staff up for right now.
Gotcha.
But that's. I mean,
we have that too. I think everybody right now has that
absolutely.
issue. I don't know what these people are doing with their time, but it's hard to find them.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important now to create that work culture that keeps the employees there.
Yes,
and keeps them engaged and keeps them moving towards the company's goals.
Absolutely. So we had coffee the other day, and you suggested a book to me, Strength to Strength.
Yes.
And I listened to it.
Oh, excellent.
Short book. It was like 4.5 hours or whatever.
Yeah, it was quick. Very cool.
Totally changed my perspective on things.
Oh, cool.
It was a good book. Yeah. It really was. I'm really taking it to heart.
Glad you enjoyed it.
I'm getting a little older in life. I'm slowing down, and I'm trying to resist it.
Yeah.
But it kind of shed light on kind of what I'm going through and kind of what the next stage in life looks like. You can't just plow through, hardcore your life, and that I've got to do more connection to people. I have a lot of deal friends, not real friends.
Yes.
every person I know. Well, I stopped drinking a few years ago. Most of my friends evolved around drinking for a long time there, and then evolved into just entrepreneurs. Like, and I used to like brag about it. Like, I can't talk to anybody if they're not an entrepreneur. It's just not worth my time, And so everybody I seem to hang out with, we have one thing in common. We're trying to help each other get further along, which is nothing wrong with that.
Exactly.
I consider friends and, not deep friendships, but friendships. But what I need to do is I need to work more on real deep friendships with people that probably are not in the real estate business and that I'm not working transactions with or trying to think of how we can work a deal together, you know what I'm saying? So that really got me thinking that I need to start really focusing on that part of life because, it's life's not all about business. There's more to it. You've got to,
and that book suggestion came from a member.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, so
See?
very good.
So, hey, if somebody wants to check out Vistage, what do they need to do, man? You got anything coming up that they can?
Oh, yes.
And by the way, I want to say, I don't get any money out of this. This is not, George didn't pay me anything. I genuinely think Vistage is a great opportunity, and I probably will come back someday. Good. But I just, what do you have going on?
First thing is just to get in touch with me and just to discover. We call it a mutual exploration journey, and it's a mutual fit journey. So, because I need to make sure that as someone who might be interested in Vistage, is it the right fit for them? Because it may not be, and it may not be the right time in their business for whatever reason. But I will commit that I'll find them the right fit if that's not the case. And the second thing is I need to make sure that they're the right fit for the group too.
Sure.
Because like I said, that the original group I had, we were at 15 members, and I think there's 2 members that have been there less than 2 years, and everyone else is 2 years more. In fact, the average tenure, if you will, of those 15 members right now is just over almost 4.5 years.
Wow.
They've been in the group. 4 of them have been in the group from day one.
Wow.
And so I need to make sure that that's the right fit for them.
Sure.
Yeah. So to have that conversation. Now, some of the things that so after that conversation, one of the things that the way the process works is I'll invite them to a full day meeting to come as a member to see if it is truly the right fit. I used to say, Rodney, that no one buys a house online, but I can't say that anymore. People buy houses.
Exactly.
People are buying houses and cars and you name it. Because it's like in the past, before technology, you never bought a house without seeing it.
Yeah.
And so that's why I say come to a meeting, act as if you're a member, and really get the experience.
Yeah, and you will. That's kind of what I did. You sit in on a meeting, you'll kind of get a vibe really quick about the group,
absolutely,
and how things operate and everything.
But and then one of the other things I do too is sometimes I'll have these what I call Vistage experience events where I'll invite 8 or 9 potential members to come together. Sometimes it's 2 or 3 and just experience a small piece of Vistage. And then the other thing I do is I have speaker sessions where I'll invite potential members. So last month we had a great speaker on sales and sales leadership. And who doesn't need sales, right?
Everybody.
So I had several people show up for that. And this coming month I have a speaker coming in and talking about strategic pricing. And especially strategic pricing, in fact, I was just listening to another podcast, strategic pricing going into a recession. Whether or not we go into one, how do you make sure that you're setting the right prices for your products and for your customers as
Gotcha.
well? So that speaker's in May. I have speakers throughout the year, and so what I'll do is I'll reach out to folks that I may have talked to over the phone and invite them to the speaker session.
Gotcha. If you're going to business, I highly recommend you check out Vistage. Go sit in on a Vistage meeting and just get a feel for it. I think it's kind of one of the biggest things you could do if you're trying to grow a business, is to get around a bunch of like-minded individuals and people that have been there before you and have probably experienced the same thing you're going through. So, yeah, I think that's huge. And how do people get a hold of you?
Well, let's see. I'm on LinkedIn. I have to search George Glover. I think I'm the only George Glover in Oklahoma City. So George Glover on LinkedIn. And my email address is pretty easy. It's george.glover@vistagechair, all one word, .com. And can I give my phone number?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
No, yeah. So my number.
Give your home number.
Yeah, number's 405-509-1873.
Okay.
So reach out to me that way, or if if we run into each other during a networking session. Happy to talk to you about Vistage and all the different types of groups, because it's not just the CEO or business owner groups. I have one for key executives. I have one for, by the end of this year, I'll have one for every level of leadership in an organization.
Cool. All right. Very good. Well, George, I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, Rodney.
Guys, Rodney Miller, Hard Money Partner. If you need a loan, call me. I loan in Oklahoma City, Tulsa, and Dallas-Fort Worth Metro. Actually, I just did one in San Antonio. If you don't need a loan, just keep tuning in to the great content. Thank you.